I feel strong to say, I feel damn confident to say, even if current President Trump changes anything, I'm having a hard time seeing that every company is going to wipe that out, right? I just have a hard time seeing it. And so far, y'all know my prediction's been right? That's the only reason the title has changed. I already told y'all back in my blog about the presidential election, how it affects HR. Okay, I told y'all about these layoffs and Microsoft and all of those. Okay, all right. I even told y'all about Target. Anyhow, I'm gonna keep going. So I'm actually happy that got expanded. It wasn't by much. And if you stay until the end, I actually have more information to tell you about the laws in the exam, because I know that freaks people out. And I also have information about the formulas in the exam, talent acquisition. Y'all, this stuff is predictable. And I am so sorry, guys. I don't know why my screen is like losing its mind. I'm gonna try to fix it real quick. As we all know, with the SHRM HRCI exams, these questions are almost picked at a lottery per se. There's a whole bunch of questions they use, but there are only so many questions each test taker takes. So not everybody gets the same question. And it's all stuff that we should have been had in the study material forever ago, child. Because we like live on these phones now. So many employees give them out like the cookies. So they should have been talking about that. Very, very simple. And so the new notes for 2025, 2026 are going to be available on my website at www.heyyhr.com. Hey y'all, this is Tamika. So if you're new here, I eat, breathe, and love human resources. Ask me why, I don't know. But what I will say is I truly feel like I'm working in my passion. And so every year I create study notes, the HR certification study notes, to help others, be able to conquer the fears of getting prepared and ready to take any of the HRCI or SHRM exams. And so this year is no different. I have literally created the 2025-2026 HR certification study notes, and I'm here to tell you the difference from 2024 to 2025. What have they changed? What do you need to focus on more? What got taken away? If you want to know more about that, then definitely keep watching. So I'm going to start by letting you guys know that every year, and I think I've been comparing from year to year since about 2021, I believe. So I've compared like 2021 to whatever. And then last year I did 2023 to 2024. Now we're doing 2024 to 2025, right? What has changed? We all know, let's be clear, we already know that politics is going through a lot, right? And this is the first time in our generation that we're seeing it impact HR so much. So yeah, we did have back in 93, I wasn't working in HR in 1993 or 92. I believe it was 1992. But we had President Clinton come up with FMLA, and that was huge in the workplace, right? And then later we had President Obama that came up with Obamacare, and that changed what healthcare and benefits look like totally in so many companies. Now we have President Trump that signed several different executive orders that's really manipulated not only federal workplace, but it obviously can trickle down into the private workspace as well, or the public workspace as well. I know that a lot of people are probably a little nervous. Like, well, Tamika, we've had all these executive orders. What has changed? Remember that he started signing these executive orders in January. What was it? January 6th, I believe. He started signing his executive orders. SHRM HRCI already made their materials long before that, because these materials have been sold for the new year since November, December. Like, it's already out, so they can't change it. On top of that, there hasn't been anything that's changed that has really impacted how the workplace continues to work. Though some of us may not like the way he's doing, or some may think it's great that it's finally happening. None of the changes he's done has changed truly how laws are impacted, except EEO. So we'll dive into that, because there's a little bit of that here, but I'm going to go through each section and tell you what's changed. The first section I'm going to go through is the competencies. Some of the material that I've noticed has shifted from 2024 to 2025 is that the DEI competency has changed. So once upon a time, we called it DEI, right? Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Now it's renamed to inclusion and diversity. Why? I don't damn know. Because when I look through everything, it still includes all of the equity stuff. That could absolutely change for next year, right? And I'll definitely keep you guys updated from 2025 to 2026. But for right now, everything has been the same except the title. So equity and everything that goes with that is still stuff you should know for the exam. It really is all included in the notes. It's really it's not a hard topic. I have several videos. I actually have a whole playlist on DEI. And so I'll definitely put that link to that playlist down below so that you can kind of get the overview. If you get the overview, I think you'll be fine because the material is not extensive or hard to remember. It's everyday life. And so it explains diversity, equity, and inclusion are three parts of the whole, just like we've always done. Even though the title has changed, just the inclusion and diversity, it still shows that. I did a video on like HRCI at SHRM, and I told you how HRCI was the first place that we ever got certified. And then later we changed over and SHRM made their own. So now that's why there's two, right? And this has happened in my career. So in the last 13 years, this has happened, right? So it's fairly new. We all know that last year, I believe it started like the end of 2023, the president of SHRM started talking differently about DEI, right? He started adding on the B and doing this different things, you know, of belonging. And he started changing different things with it. Personally, I feel strong to say, I feel damn confident to say that that's the only reason the title has changed, because the president's made this big change, right? The president of SHRM. Everything's still included. All subtitles have changed literally from DEI to I and D. And the only information that was expanded was about gender-based discrimination and gender identity bias. That's a part you want to pay attention because gender is a slightly different from sex. So I would pay attention to that contrast because that's became such a big thing in the workplace. Even if current President Trump changes anything, I'm having a hard time seeing that every company is going to wipe that out, right? I just have a hard time seeing it. And so far, y'all know my predictions been right? I already told y'all back in my blog about the presidential election, how it affects HR. Okay, I told y'all about these layoffs and Microsoft and all of those. Okay, all right. I even told y'all about Target. Anyhow, I'm gonna keep going. Now, in the competencies section, the information that was expanded was on data and resources and how to gather data, which I think is great. I just did a live recently and so many people were like so confused on how to create analytics just to put in their resume. So obviously if you can't put it into your resume and gloat about yourself and the transition you've made from one space to another, then you would have a hard time in the HR space doing that. So I'm actually happy that that got expanded. It wasn't by much. And if you stay until the end, I actually have more information to tell you about the laws in the exam because I know that freaks people out. And I also have information about the formulas in the exam because I know that freaks people out. People always asking questions in the HR study groups on like Facebook and LinkedIn about the laws and the formulas. I'm gonna give y'all some information at the end. Just stick until the end. The next section I'm going to talk about is the people section. So in the people section, they have expanded on aspects of strategic and global talent acquisition. Y'all, this stuff is predictable, right? It's predictable. You ain't even got to work in HR and it's predictable. If we think about it, look at how many companies we're buying from internationally. So there are companies that are literally having workers work here, but they work for Shein. They work for Temu. They work for Fashion Nova. Those companies are in those stores in other countries, but they're shipped here. Somebody has to handle them once they get here. When stuff gets imported from other countries, most times from these big stores, it comes in these big containers, got to be shaken down according to like where it needs to get dispersed. It doesn't come and just go straight to your house all the time, right? So big furniture and stuff like that, different. So that's employees here in the US that's breaking these things down and dispersing them. It makes so much sense why we need to talk about the strategy of global talent acquisition, right? Because now, how do we manage working for a company in another country? They may recognize a holiday that we don't recognize here, right? We may work for a company that pays you for X number of days off for certain reasons that you don't need here. Like you may work for a UK company, this is totally hypothetical, but you may work for a UK company that gives you a whole year off for your maternity leave, but you don't get a whole lot of PTO according to US laws, right? Or paid time off to compensate for it. Maybe that company doesn't pay for maternity leave. You know, it can get really convoluted. So it's very good that they're talking about that. On top of that, the main thing that it focused on was the talent acquisition part. How do we find employees that can work in one country for the other? Because just like me, as an HRBP, I work in the US, but I had employees in Australia the UK, Canada, India. Like I had employees in all these areas. So there were certain aspects I needed to know, like how do I manage this with them, right? And so I'm in the US, a lot of things don't apply. Like time off, like separations or severances, like benefits. There's so many things that works differently here. So it not only talks about that, but it talks about how do we find the talent that can manage these things? How do we find the talent that can fit the skill set? How do we pay them? In different countries, a lot of times, we may give an employee per se, and like in India, they get a lot more employee benefits coverage than us. Here in the US, we only cover us, our spouse, and the children that live in our house. They cover everyone in the house, and typically they have multiple generations in the house. So that's a good example. In the people section, it also went through challenges to employee engagement. I didn't feel like that part was really in depth like it could be. It just gave more examples. It gave more benefits to employee engagement. It gave more insight to why you need to focus on this area. But I feel like it could have given more practical information as to like, how do you move forward with this type of work? And I am so sorry, guys. I don't know why my screen is like losing its mind. I'm going to try to fix it real quick. All right, so hopefully my screen stopped being weird. So sorry about that. I was just like, is my eyes jumping or what? But here we go. It also, in addition to, global talent acquisition and employee engagement, also talked about career development and expanded on the roles of career development. So it went more into like what you would use a mentor for, what would you use a career coach for, how does HR help in these capacities with career coaching, mentoring, as well as like career strategy and career growth and giving like a clear career path. Some of this stuff we worry about studying for it, and a lot of stuff we need to think about it for ourselves because that's good information to know for yourself, right? The next thing that it changed was global considerations and leadership development. It really added that section. That section did not exist before, but I promise you it was a very, very small section. So don't waste a bunch of time trying to like memorize this section. It was very small. As we all know, with the SHRM HRCI exams, these questions are almost picked at a lottery per se. There's a whole bunch of questions they use, but there are only so many questions each test taker takes. So not everybody gets the same questions. So it's very possible that this whole new section about global considerations and leadership development might not be on your exam. Just like there are some people that didn't have formulas on their exam. Me, I only had like 2. Another person I knew, they said they had like 10 questions of formulas. I had no laws on my exam. Other people had many laws. It changes. None of the exams are exactly the same. All right, so now let's go to the next section of what has changed with the HRCI and SHRM exam. The next section is going to be organization. And let me be clear, because see, I'm diving into this thing like it's a whole bunch of changes. Child, there's only one change in the organization section. Do not beat yourself over with, okay, let me write down notes on what changed in organization. Only one. So the only one that changed was it expanded on devices and social media. It mainly talked about the policies to create. It literally said like some of the considerations you should have, people that should help you decide on these policies, the people it should affect, the type of employees it should affect, the type of verbiage you put into it. And it's all stuff that we should have been had in the study material forever ago, child, because we like live on these phones now. So many employees giving them out like the cookies. So they should have been talking about that. Very, very simple. So now we can go to the next section. The next section that had changes was the workplace section, right? And that section had minor updates on risk and mitigating risk. Risk is literally saying, if we do this, how much risk can we incur if it goes wrong? And what are the things that can make it go wrong? Because sometimes you have internal risk, sometimes you have external risk. Sometimes you have known risk, sometimes you have unknown risk. Sometimes you have a one-time risk, sometimes you have a risk that's going to be repetitive. So just talk about these different risks. Now, one thing that it went into, or I'll say the next thing that it went into was visas. And I found that so helpful because when I first started working for a global company and I had to work with employees that had visas, I'm going to be real with y'all. That was the first time in so many years that I actually went back to my study materials, particularly my study notes, to refresh myself on it. I was good to go, but child, when we got to these visas, I got lost. And the biggest focus here is the H-1B visa. So it still goes over to all the other visas, not all, but majority of the visas that affect the workplace. But it went into more detail, or it added H-1B visa, application process, the documents, and the H-1B visa's period of stay details. Again, this ain't got nothing to do with Trump, because this we've been talking about long before Trump. Like, there are too many companies that are global, y'all. If y'all pay attention, quite a few of these changes literally hit on global things, right? Totally makes sense why that changed. And it's very, very helpful because the H-1B is a very, very common visa that folks go for. It's expensive, but it's very, very common. It's usually the first one your attorney is going to say you should try to go for. So it went through the application process and the documents to go with it. And then it also went through the period of stay details because, you know, you can do up to 3 years or whatever. I know it's not 10, 3 years or 7 years or something crazy, but you can get that extended. And so it doesn't go into what scenarios can make it extended because there's so many reasons. And then you submit the application, you go into the lottery, see if they take your reason, and reasons vary so much. So don't worry about the reasons, more so worry about the time frame, you know, some of the documents you use, you know, how long you can keep this employee employed, things like that. So that's all the changes from the 2024 to 2025. If I didn't mention it here, it's in my notes. You need to study it. Don't be like, oh, that's all we need to know. No, this is what changed. This is not everything that you need to know for the exam. So remember, I always tell you guys what changed from year to year. And this video, I hope, is super duper helpful. I just want you to know that I love HR. And I realized I didn't have a lot of people helping me when I started my career. I had particular people that were helping me. They helped me with what they know. So many people started in admin or they started another department and just got kind of tossed into HR because it became a department. So a lot of them weren't familiar with, like, how does this go if somebody got a degree in HR and then came in HR? And so I had to figure out a lot of stuff on my own, and hence came the creation of Heyyy HR, because I was like, if somebody had just told me, my career could have went a lot faster, I could have made a lot more money quicker, and I could have kept moving. So if you're new here, I want you to know that not only have I worked in HR for the last 13 years, but I started my career as an HR assistant. I worked all the way up to HR director, and then now I gladly sit as an HR BP. Business partner. I've also been an HR consultant for several different industries. I loved HR so much when I went into grad school to get my MBA that I also got a master's in human resources management, a master's in human resources leadership. And then lastly, I got the highest level HR certification, which is the HR or the SHRM SCP. And so if that don't tell you I love HR, then I don't know what will tell you. So I love this stuff. Throw your questions down in the chat. I help you as best I can, or give you to a resource that can help you, because I help you with all things HR, but I do not hone in on the study process. That's a big undertaking that HR doesn't provide, but we do provide the HR certification study notes. And so the new notes for 2025-2026 are going to be available on my website at www.heyyhr.com. On launch day, there's going to be a launch day sale, no code needed or anything. I normally do that every single year. If you join my email list, you get a code that gives you an even larger discount. The link to my email list is going to be in the description box. These notes are online. You get them the same day. You can easily download them. You can click through them. I show and get tagged in and reshare so many posts of so many people using these notes and passing. I mean, I was floored the first time somebody was like, I use your notes and pass. And I'm still floored now because I constantly, every day, every year, put this passion into it because it is the best-selling product for HR. And I put this passion into it, and it just feels good to know that the passion wasn't like wasted. You know what I'm saying? Like, well, I just put all this time, energy, sweat, blood, tears, losing sleep for nothing. But it also helps me know that the reason I created Heyyy HR is truly working. I just want people to start, grow their career, grow it confidently, be authentically themselves, and make a shit ton of money and go home and enjoy their family and have a good old work-life balance. So if you want to know more about Heyyy HR, or more about HR period, or more about what we got going on around here, because we adding some new stuff with Heyyy HR. If you haven't already, because I'm assuming you ain't subscribed. If you haven't subscribed yet, then hit the subscribe button and then hit that bell for all notifications so you can be notified of the next video. But for those of you who already subscribed, you get ready to take this exam, you just need to know what's going on. Hey girl, hey, so happy to have you back. I appreciate you continuing to watch. Oh, one last thing. I got so excited. The whole section I had told you all about at the end, I almost forgot to share. Remember I was talking about the laws and the formula? My bad. I'm back. Business as usual. I want y'all to know that the laws on the HR certification exam is always focused on federal laws. Do not bury yourself with learning the local laws or your state laws for this exam. You need to know them to work. Yeah, absolutely. But as far as this exam, you want to know the federal laws. So that's the great thing, is that federal laws are always on there. any of the 2025 Trump changes are not laws that's here. Now, honestly, those were executive orders, right? Which some executive orders do become lawful for us that we have to follow. It just hasn't been the case for this exam. Remember this, I told you at the beginning, this exam was created long before Trump started writing out and getting happy with that pen and signing all of these executive orders. So don't worry about that yet. 2026, I probably would think about that. For right now, you're good to go. State laws, not on there. Your local, like your county, your city laws that affect the workplace, not on there. Laws all done. Just told you about that. Now let's talk about these formulas. And so many people get excited like, well, what kind of formulas can there be? Oh, HR needs to know math. I've done several videos on telling you how finances work in the HR and the finances that HR needs to work about, right? Or focus on. And so I'm going to put these videos right here. As usual, I'm going to put the link down in the description box. I tell you guys about how much or what type of math and finance that HR is responsible for or can be responsible for, because there are a lot of times you go in finance is like, nah, we got all the numbers. Sometimes you go in finance like, you got to do these numbers and we'll do these numbers. So told y'all about that. But there's still formulas that you still need to know for your knowledge. Sometimes you want to use these formulas in HR to give you a reason for your case or to support your case or to support a reasoning for needing more money, needing more resources, needing to change the trajectory of something. Those formulas are recruiting formulas. So sometimes you want to know your days to fill, your times to fill, your cost per hire, that type of thing. So you want to know the recruiting formulas, or those are the things that's included in this exam because you need to know all of them, right? And then your employee engagement metrics. You want to be able to measure how successful not only a program or initiative is, but you want to be able to measure the engagement of your employees. How happy are they? You can measure that. Compensation is your part that has the most formulas, right? I say compensation, recruitment. Yeah, those are probably the ones that have the most formulas. But compensation is another one. That one's easy math. We talking about folks' money, get it together. The next one is your benefits metrics. Most times your brokers or your account managers really handle your benefits metrics, and then your finance team will go back and kind of validate them, but it's always great if you know them. For most companies, if I was involved to that level, let's say I was doing an HR generalist, I was an HR director, HR manager, and those aspects, I always wanted to validate the information that was presented to me. Not only that, I always work with a finance department where if they weren't doing it, then we start. If they were doing it, then we continue. If they never heard of it, then I introduced it and we started, right? But I always tell them we need 2 quality checks. Internal. I always trust my brokers. I trust my account managers, right? Absolutely do. But we're humans. We all make errors. So I always like to do a quality check and then I get finance to check it. Doesn't matter the order. We just make sure it's checked. So you want to do that with your benefits, your compensation. You also want to do that with projecting your employee headcount. So that's another set of formulas that's included in this exam. You want to project how many employees do we need for this project? How many employees do we need over time? What's this going to cost us? How much is getting these number of employees going to, hit our budget throughout the year? And then you also want to know your risk loss. I will tell you with risk, typically that's something that finance handles. We rarely handle risk. I mean, in 13 years, I've never had to do a risk calculation. Now, recruiting, employee engagement, compensation, benefits, and employee headcount, yes. Risk, 13 years, I've never had to do it. And I worked in several jobs over 13 years, several companies, several positions. So that's one I would probably look at, but I wouldn't spend a lot of time because honestly, even let's say it comes up, it's not going to be a ton of questions. And if it does and you get them wrong, as long as you get 100% on all other questions, that should help you pass. Like you should still be able to pass if you get those wrong, right? You can get some answers wrong. You ain't need a perfect score, child. But anyhow, that was what I promised you guys about the laws, the formulas, and the exams. So for this time, I'm going for real. Deuces. As always, y'all, I cannot wait to see you on the next video.